Yes, I mean, I love that. I think that's really beautiful. And I know, like, and I just want to share like a personal story because I know that's something that, obviously drives a lot of what we do, our personal lived experiences, families, and things of that nature. When my dad was sick, unfortunately he passed of cancer. Prior to him, getting sick or, getting to that extent of his sickness, I know at different points from, what my mom told us over the years, she had asked him like, hey, there's this thing called insurance, life insurance, you know, I think we should get this, especially because obviously things are not progressing in the best way. This can help out a lot, especially as you go to the hospital and take care of your all these different things as it relates to cancer treatment, as you mentioned earlier, sis. And for my dad and for many other immigrants, a lot of them when they think about insurance, especially if they aren't making that much in the first place, there's always this idea of, oh well, it's just a way for them to take more money out of your check. It's just a way for them to don't mind them, the typical way that our African parents kind of talk sometimes, like, oh, it's no big deal, we don't need that, we have our own way of taking care of ourselves. But thankfully, my mom, eventually she decided to get insurance. She wasn't able to get a lot because, she again didn't have much information. So she just kind of did whatever she was able to do. And, after my dad's passing, unfortunately, obviously, like you said this earlier, it's not something that anybody wants to happen, but it's something that we experience. If you're sick, if you're, whatever, you know that something's going to happen eventually. So it's one of the best ways you can protect your family, especially if you don't have a lot of money saved anyway. So if you can maybe just kind of, if you happen to have a personal experience, either someone that you know directly or just maybe someone in your community, can you just kind of share how maybe someone's experience might maybe impacted you or influenced you to kind of get into this field,
Yeah.
and how you saw, yeah, how life insurance kind of helped out.
So I have like the story that I say like it's comparing apples to apples. So one of the very first pharmacists I worked with, she was going through her second round of breast cancer. And,
Mm,
working in the pharmacy is not like an easy job. Like we're standing the entire time. And so she would go to chemo like during the week, and then like we would work together on the weekends because that was basically my schedule. Like so every other weekend I'll be working with her. And it was the most heartbreaking thing to watch because she literally did not have the strength. She was exhausted. Um, but she had to keep working. And so I asked her, like, hey, like, why do you keep coming here? Obviously, you're not doing well. You need to take time to take care of yourself. But she said she had to keep working because she needed health insurance. And that's another thing that people don't think about. Like, when you say, like, I'm good, well, when you get these life changing diseases, some people have to keep working because they need health insurance. Because if you lose that health insurance, you probably won't even be able to access your treatment in any way, shape, or form. And so she kept working until her doctor like put her on bed rest, and shortly after bed rest, she ended up passing away. And then when I got into this field and I started learning more about the value of life insurance and why we need to protect our lives through like the research, one of my aunts actually reached out to me and she was like, I'm so glad that you're doing this. And I was like, okay, like I'm like, thank you. And she's like, no, I'm so glad that you're doing this because I had cancer. And so this aunt she's also a pharmacist, right? And so basically making the same figure with my old manager that I used to work with. And she was like, I had cancer. And, like what saved my life was my life insurance. Because she's like, when I got cancer, she's like, so she told me how she got the life insurance policy. She's like, these people came to my school while I was a pharmacy student and they were telling us about it. I didn't have any reason why not to sign up for it, and I did. And she's like, the whole time I had the policy, I thought about stopping it so many times because I just didn't really understand why I needed to have it, why I was paying for it. But then she was like, well, it wasn't hurting me financially, so why not? And then she got her diagnosis for cancer. And she said, that policy saved me because when I got the diagnosis, I had to step back from work. And when I stepped back from work, I could access that policy to take care of me. She like, it was through that policy that I paid my mortgage. It was through that policy that I was able to pay my bills. I was able to take care of my treatment. And she's like, one thing she told me was that if you do not have money, you will not access the treatment, which is like the treatment is very expensive. And so she went for like a period of like 2 to 3 years that she wasn't really like working full time. And that whole time, I didn't even know that she had cancer. I just thought that maybe she took a break from work and took like a sabbatican or something. But just to come and find out, like, no, she was treating herself. And she was able to do that because she had a life insurance policy. So I always, and she was like, a lot of people say, how did you get through that period? Life insurance doesn't work. And she's like, no, it works because I'm a living testimony that it works. She's like, I will pay for my life insurance before I pay my light bill. Because if something happens to me, it's my policy that's going to keep me in the house. And so like I just compare like apples to apples with her experience versus my pharmacist that I worked with. And I was like, if she had living benefits, if my pharmacist had living benefits, if she had a policy, would she have been at work slaving away just so she could have had some type of health insurance to access her chemo? Or would she have been at home with her 2 kids, like taking care of them, taking care of herself? And maybe she would still be here with us today, right? Because stress also weakens the immune system, and when you're working in a high stress environment, like it
Right.
affects you. And so that's really apples to apples. Like my aunt ended up going back to work like 1 day a week, but she said I went back to work because I was bored at home, not because I needed to work. I was just bored. I had to do something, so I was working 1 day a week. And so you start seeing the differences with the quality of life and the opportunities you have just because you have
Mm.
access to that financial reserve.